Mortal Kombat 11's Aftermath DLC. It was the last major update for the game besides any balance changes or patches. For 3 years, people have wondered what was next for NetherRealm Studios. Were we getting Injustice 3, Mortal Kombat 12, or Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe 2? And everybody was wrong because we got none of the above. We're getting Mortal Kombat 1.
Oh, well.
Alright, it's a reboot, that's cool. We'll just call it Mortal Kombat. Well, shit. Mortal Kombat has been around so long and has gotten so convoluted as to get rebooted not once, but twice. How do we get here? Well, hey y'all, I'm Christopher, and today we're going to be looking at Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat, and find out how we ended up with Mortal Kombat again. Like any story, we must start at the beginning to make it to our journey to the end, which is now the beginning. Shit. We're barely into this thing, we're already dealing with paradoxes. Anyway, I'm not going to dive too deeply into how the game was created. Basically, Ed Boon and John Tobias got a team together at Midway to make a fighting game inspired by martial arts flicks and other pop culture icons. Added some digitized actors, a little elbow grease, and you have yourself a successful fighting game. Just like Street Fighter II, the original Mortal Kombat is straightforward in its premise. The Mortal Kombat tournament is a contest between realms to keep their powers in check. It was business as usual until Outworld sorcerer Shang Tsung shows up with his Shokan pal Goro and wrecked everyone's shit. This goes on for about 500 years until the White Lotus Society enters the warrior monk Liu Kang in the next tournament, where he is one of several warriors entering the competition. Who's up for a roll call? Kano, a notorious criminal and the leader of the Black Dragon Syndicate. Raiden, the Elder God of Thunder in human form. Scorpion, a Shirai Ryu ninja out for revenge against Sub-Zero, a Lin Kuei ninja who enters the tournament to assassinate Shang Tsung. Sonya Blade, a US Special Forces agent on the hunt for Kano. And Johnny Cage, an action film star entering the tournament to show off his skills. Reptile is there too, but we'll get to him a bit later. In any case, this is your roster, and just like Street Fighter, everybody is memorable. Every fighter has obvious inspirations, some more than others, but it gives Midway a solid foundation to build on. To be successful, every great roster needs one. Speaking of foundations, how about the gameplay? At the time, nothing played quite like Mortal Kombat. That still rings true, even today. But perhaps the oddest feature of this was the block button. Most fighters would have you hold back on the control pad or the joystick to block incoming attacks. While not the worst thing in the world, it takes some getting used to, as not many fighting games use a dedicated block button. Also, MK would forego the 6 or 4 button format of light, medium, or heavy attacks in favor of a system of high and low punches and kicks. Other than that, it's standard for a fighting game. You have special moves, few combos, some throws. It's very solid on its own, but Midway felt it was missing something.
Sub-Zero win. Flawless victory. Fatality.
Ah, there it is. Fatalities. Mortal Kombat's claim to fame and infamy. Look, you know what fatalities are and how they're responsible for the ESRB we know today. I'm not going to go over all that, though I do think it's funny that this shit right here is worth clutching your pearls over, even in the early 90s. Anyway, you choose your character and start your journey through the tournament proper. A tournament where all your opponents are determined before you fight them.
Oh, well.
This is the first appearance of Mortal Kombat's famous arcade ladders. It always starts from the top and scrolls down. Yeah, it's a random order each time, but not seeing it makes it feel more like a tournament than a gauntlet. It matters even less in the grand scheme of things. The only confirmed tournaments in lore are the first and second games, and their reboots. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here. So you thread through the ladder, making your way to Goro, and eventually Shang Tsung. At some point, you'll enter the pit stage, where if you do all this shit during the match, you fight Reptile. Yep, he's a green ninja. Pretty much he's just a mix of Scorpion Sub-Zero's movesets. Reptile will become playable in the next game, and then from there he would develop into a more unique ninja. Or in later games, an actual fucking lizard. Anyway, you beat him and you get a crap load of points and some bragging rights. Now you can continue your arcade run with your head held high.
Flawless victory.
The only other shakeups are a couple of endurance matches and a mandatory mirror match. The mirror match is only weird because they make the distinction of calling it that instead of just letting it play out regular. The endurance matches are a Mortal Kombat staple. It's a handicap match where you fight two opponents with their own health bars. Beat them both best of 3 and you're on to the end game. Goro is a piece of work. He hits like a truck, and I'm pretty sure he reads your inputs. You'll probably have to cheese him out to win. Shang Tsung isn't quite as bad. He has fireballs, a dodge, and his trademark shape-shifting ability. But if you can beat him, you'll win the game.
Sonya sub Scorp Luke at Raiden Kano Johnny Sonya sub Scorp Luke at Raiden.
And that's Mortal Kombat in a nutshell. From there, things would expand quite a bit. As far as lore goes, Liu Kang beats Goro and Shang Tsung. Shang crawls back to his boss and the Emperor of Outworld, Shao Kahn, for another chance at redemption. Things only get crazier from there. People get killed off, there's a new Sub-Zero, Earth gets invaded, people get brought back to life, cyborgs are running around, Quan Chi, and it all comes to an end when some background character ends up being so important and powerful that he threatens to bring Armageddon to all. At this point, Mortal Kombat has gotten so wild that Midway needed to kill off a bunch of characters in universe. The next game that came out was Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, which does exactly what it says on the box. While the game was divisive, it became a pivotal moment in Mortal Kombat and Midway's history, as it would eventually lead to Midway surviving after bankruptcy by getting acquired by Warner Brothers and rebranding itself as NetherRealm Studios. Their first order of business being a reboot of Mortal Kombat called, well, Mortal Kombat. 2011 saw the triumphant return of Mortal Kombat, and this time the series will be returning to its roots. No more 3D movement, no more multiple styles, 2.5D fighting is on the menu. With this game comes substantial changes in the gameplay. No more high or low attacks, each button is now tied to a limb, just like Tekken. Perhaps the largest feature is the new meter, which allows you to break your opponent's combos and unleash new X-ray moves for massive damage. God, everything sounds so crunchy and visceral. Your roster this time can be described as Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 with some tweaks. Smoke is human again, and Sub-Zero gets a cyber alt. Kenshi was the only character that was worth a damn to bring over from the Armageddon trilogy to the reboot. Cause Su Hao was making it in for sure. As far as new characters go, you have Scarlet, who started off as a rumor all the way back in Mortal Kombat 2 and became a real girl just for this game. She's a kunoichi that uses blood magic. It's as gory as it sounds. The roster would see 2 more surprises in the form of 2 guest characters, and they're random as fuck. Freddy Krueger and Kratos. Okay, Freddy kinda makes sense. I think New Line Cinema became a subsidiary of Warner Brothers at this time, so I can see kinda how he got in, but Kratos? I mean, I get it. Kratos was a violent asshole at the time, so he fits right in with the other violent assholes in Mortal Kombat. Hell, Spawn would have been an even better fit, and he's also tied to New Line through the 1997 movie. They should have gone with Spawn first. At least that way, each version of the game would have parity between each other, because Kratos is a Sony boy. Kratos is a Sony exclusive character, meaning if you have the PC or 360 version of Mortal Kombat, you have one less character to play with. It's as lame as it sounds. Luckily, this is the only time they did that, as any and all guest characters that showed up from here on out in the next games will be available on all platforms. You also have plenty to chew on for modes this time, as Mortal Kombat 2011 has a handful of minigames alongside your standard arcade ladder. 2011 also brings in a new tag team mode that also has its own ladder. You fight a series of 2v2 fights right up until you reach Sang Song. Then every fight after that is 2v1. Beating that gives you the endings of both characters used, and it can be played co-op. Test Your Might and Test Your Sight are the most well-known ones. They've been a staple in Mortal Kombat for years now. Tap the buttons to raise your strength enough to break shit, and Test Your Sight is a shell game, full stop. Test Your Strike is a modified version of Test Your Might, where you must get the bar to a specific section of the meter to break the object. Test Your Luck is the most original of these minigames. You fight a 1v1 match against an opponent, except this time you fight with up to 7 randomly selected modifiers. These can range from character buffs or debuffs, environmental hazards, interface changes, or random bodily harm. It's the most fun anyone can have dealing with bullshit. All these modes be rolled up into a single player mode called the Challenge Tower, where these games are sprinkled across 300 different challenges. It's the biggest mode in the game outside the story, and if you complete the last challenge, you get what is perhaps the most thirstiest alt costume ever conceived in a fighting game. Yeah, they found a way to give this woman less clothing. The main attraction for single players this time is the story mode. Instead of having the arcade mode be the story mode, this time they're separate entities. Beating arcade mode will net you an ending for your character that may or may not be canon. If you want the real shit, you gotta play the story mode. NetherRealm story modes are well known today, but back then this was amazing. Never has a fighting game been so immersive and groundbreaking in its story mode. The plot unfolds through 16 different chapters. Each chapter follows a single character that you play as until it switches off to the next character. Shakeups occur, but that's how it works, for the most part. The plot picks up from the end of Armageddon, where Raiden realizes how fucked everything is and decides to send a telepathic message to his past self before he gets killed by a blaze-amped Shao Kahn. Raiden's past self receives the message just as the first Mortal Kombat tournament is about to begin. The events for the first 3 games take place over the span of the 16 chapters, with more and more drastic changes due to timeline shenanigans. People die, alliances are formed, people get betrayed, Quan Chi is back, Sindel is somehow really OP, and in the end, most of the cast dies to prevent Armageddon. A Pyrrhic victory if I ever saw one. Then Mortal Kombat proceeds to go wild, yet again. Mortal Kombat X has a time skip where the heroes are dealing with a Shinnok, Quan Chi, and the undead versions of the heroes that died in the last game. More fights happen, more deaths happen. Johnny Cage's bloodline is really good at fighting evil, and his daughter beats the brakes off of Shinnok. And then later, Raiden becomes corrupted and beheads Shinnok. This leads to Mortal Kombat 11, where more timeline shit happens because Shinnok's mother was a time goddess. Her name is Kronika, and she is out for revenge, and threatens to make a new timeline to fix the current one. Combat continues, Liu Kang becomes a fire god, kills Kronika, and begins a new timeline, rebooting the franchise a second time with the newest game, Mortal Kombat 1. See, it even has Jean-Claude Van Damme in it. We've finally come full circle. And that's how we got here. I understand why they couldn't just call it Mortal Kombat again, because they already blew that load in the garbage. But Mortal Kombat 12 would have worked just as fine. But now, whenever people talk about this shit, they have to be like, hey, how's it in Mortal Kombat? MK1, yeah, it's pretty good. Bruh, Mortal Kombat 1 came out in the 90s. Shit ain't new. No, I'm playing the new one. The one on 360? No, Mortal Kombat 1!